It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video. In this video we're going to be talking about the premiere of Season 8, the 100th episode, and that it's going to be, quote, action-packed. So EU.com recently did an article where they basically talked about an interview Dennis Huth, one of the co-executive producers, did with Entertainment Weekly about Season 8 in general, and specifically the 100th episode, which will be Season 8, Episode 1. So I'm gonna go over this article, I'm gonna read the questions and her response and talk about my opinions about each of these questions. So let's get right into this. So the first question is, you all are filming the 100th episode. You've been here for all of them. What does this mean for you and your team? Dennis Huth. It's kind of surreal in a way. Back when we started, we never imagined we'll make it to 100 episodes. It seemed like such a far off goal. It was hard to even contemplate at that time. We just wanted a second season. It's a huge compliment. The fact that we've been able to grow this story and grow the show, and every year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. This year, that's certainly the case as well. And on top of it, that our season premiere for Season 8 happens to be the 100th episode. It makes it a really exciting way to come back. The energy here is really good. Everybody is super pumped, and it's particularly exciting coming off of last year when the season premiere. Last year was a total 180 energy-wise. It was a really tough way to start the season. And this year, it's a really exciting way to start. So that's the end of her response. So based on what I talked about in my previous video about the premiere of Season 8 and it being the 100th episode, that interview was an interview Andrew Lincoln did. And I see a lot of the same sort of discussion here as well. How it's the 100th episode, it's a big episode. They never imagined it getting this big and this far. So there's definitely the same sort of feeling and energy that I get from this response, and it seems like it's the same sort of response. But there's something here that's very interesting. She highlights that it's a total 180 energy-wise, coming off of the premiere of Season 7. Obviously, you remember the premiere of Season 7, we lost two of our major characters, Glenn and Abraham, and overall, it was a very emotional and dark episode. So when she's saying it's 180 energy-wise, it means that things are probably going to go Rick's way, or the survivors' way. So that basically means that obviously in the premiere of Season 7, things went nowhere Rick and the survivors' way. So perhaps the premiere of Season 8, Rick and the other survivors are going to have an advantage. They're going to see something good coming their way. So that's basically what I get from there. The next question is, at what point did someone there do the math and realize the episode 100 would be your Season 8 premiere? And her response is, I think sometime during Season 6. We did the math and we put the numbers together and realized that episode 801 would be the 100th episode. But it doesn't really change the overall storytelling. Certainly, there's a thought of that, and I'm sure showrunner Scott Gimple thought about it when he was writing this episode. But it's also just naturally the way this story is being told. And the fact that this is the start of the war, it worked out very well. Fate was kind to us that this was the episode we had for the 100th episode. So it's pretty cool that they kind of realized that this is going to be the 100th episode in Season 6. But I would kind of disagree with her, because she says that it doesn't really change things or the overall storytelling. I think it kind of does. I think because it's the 100th episode, they are putting in more energy, more effort to make it even better. So they may not have made the episode what it would potentially become if it wasn't the 100th episode. But she definitely does say that Scott Gimple had that in mind when he wrote that episode. And maybe that is going to resonate throughout the episode when we watch it come October. The next question is, Andrew Lincoln, Norman Reedus, Lenny James, and others all talked pretty openly about how difficult last season was to film. because the characters were all separated and really depressed and having to take crap from this Negan dude. How much more fun is it to film now as we head into All Out War arc from the comics? And her response is, oh gosh, it's like night and day compared to how we had to start last year. They all came back so super excited and it's a big year. These episodes are coming in huge. It's a lot of work. It's just as hard as it's ever been, if not harder. There's just a sense of excitement because the characters aren't in that dark, down place. It was really hard last year. It was hard for the cast. It was hard for the crew. It was hard for all of us. It was a real essential part of the story, and I think we needed to go through that pain to have what we're doing now be so satisfying. If everything we are doing now had happened in the 3rd or 4th episode last year, it would still be cool, but it wouldn't have the impact now because we've all had to sturge through the mud to get here. So it's great. The energy is just incredible with the cast being together. And for a lot of these actors, it's the first time or one of the first times they're having the opportunity to work together because they were so split up last year. So it's exciting for us to integrate a lot of newer characters with the OGs and see them all come together and take on this one challenge that they share. It makes it a really exciting way to begin a season. So yeah, basically what she's saying here is giving us hope that season 8 won't be as split as season 7 was, and maybe we're gonna see our favorite characters and maybe new characters interact, work together, and that's gonna be very cool to see. Now, especially because she's emphasizing that we're gonna see a lot more of them being together and it's not gonna be so split. I have a feeling that they did incorporate some of their feedback that they got or some of the problems fans had last season, and maybe they're gonna make some changes and make the season feel more integrated rather than split. But one more thing I want to say about this part of the response, when she's saying that maybe what we're doing now happened in the 3rd or 4th episode of season 7, we wouldn't have the same feeling. That's definitely true. I definitely agree with that. I think if they did what they're gonna do now, which is basically them fighting back and trying to defeat Negan, it wouldn't have worked if we didn't see how far down Rick went and how broken he was. And I think that is why it's important, because he went down so low, then he realized that he needs others and he needs, the communities. And that was basically the baseline of them marching to war, or the second half of season 7. So I think we needed all of that so that when we're going to war, when we're actually going to this all-out war arc, it feels like everything needed to happen and that everything happened for a reason. So I definitely agree with her. Although season 7 was slow and the split episodes definitely hurt the season, I think that the story was there. They needed to tell the story they did. Maybe not the way they did, but they definitely needed to tell the story in season 7 the way that it happened. But again, the structure wasn't the best. The next question is, are you worried about catching up to the comics and going neck and neck with it? The response is, there's no telling with Scott and the writers and the things they pull. I don't think we will really totally catch up. I think comic creator Robert Kirkman will always stay ahead of us, and Scott likes to take a lot of detours. So we always have the roadmap to follow and we know generally where we're going to get to. But he introduces a lot of things that don't exist in the comics, like the scavengers and the heaps, and finds a way to integrate these elements into Robert's existing story. People ask me all the time how long the show is going to go. I have no idea, but Robert is nowhere near done with the books. So I think it would be quite some time before we were in danger of catching up to him. So yeah, that is kind of like a side note, but I definitely do agree with her that there's not going to be a lot of catching up anytime soon. The comics is still going, and Robert Kirkman has over and over specified that the story is nowhere close to being done and that he has a lot of things that he wants to do and that there's a lot of story left. So I think Scott Gimple remixing the story a lot and adding things in that don't exist in the comics and changing things, it makes it more plausible that there's never going to be a point where they're even close to catching up. So yeah, I think that we don't have to worry about them catching up. There's not going to be a scenario where they're going to catch up and they're going to have to try to think about what to do. I don't think that's going to happen. The last question is, you can't tell us what is happening in the premiere, but give us a few adjectives to describe what fans are going to see. And her response is, it's a ton of action. It's super exciting. I think it will be really, really satisfying. As a fan of the show, and I am a fan of the show, when I read it, it was like, oh, I can't wait. It's gonna be great. It's worth the wait to get to this moment. I think that's definitely a good sign that what we're gonna see in Season 8, or specifically Season 8's premiere, is going to be action-packed. It's going to be great. It's gonna be exciting. I think what fans need more than ever now is a sort of storytelling that is not just focused on one group or one person, but also they need to understand what kind of show this is. It's a drama, but it's an action horror drama, so they need action, they need horror, they need the walkers, they need to invest time developing the characters and making it be a drama show, but at the same time they need to bring in walkers, they need to have that horror aspect and that action aspect. And I think now more than ever they need the action because of the war coming up and because of All Out War. But that's basically it for her response and the questions. And based on what I said, I definitely think that this is not one of those times where they hype up a season premiere for no reason. They have never really hyped it for no reason. They've always been right, more or less, except I would say the finale of season 6. That's one episode when they hyped it, and it wasn't really what they hyped us for. But I think the other times they definitely were hyping it enough, and they weren't lying to us. And I think it's the same here. Even more, because it's the 100th episode, I feel like they need to do something very special. And they're not lying when they say that it's going to be action-packed, it's going to be very exciting. So I definitely think that coming up in Season 8, in the premiere, we're going to get arguably the best episode that they have ever done, or they have ever attempted. So that's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.